right now, Judge Mazant, a Texas federal judge, is reviewing whether or not to grant a temporary restraining order for Elliott. Judge Mazant's clerk's office has said that we'll get a decision by Friday. If it's granted, that would restrain the NFL from imposing the 6-game suspension for a limited period of time, probably about 2 weeks. Then there would be an additional hearing to see if it can be extended. And if he declines to invoke the temporary restraining order, that would be a huge defeat for Elliott. It would be hard for him to come back from that.
Let's rewind this a little bit then. In the fact that Ezekiel Elliott can play this week, it is very confusing to a lot of people how a suspension can get upheld and then the NFL agrees to the fact that he gets to play in week 1. Why would the NFL do that?
Well, the NFL has issued a statement that basically says because the decision of Harold Henderson wasn't made before Elliott went to court yesterday, it's essential for fairness that Elliott not be suspended for this first week's games. It's certainly not required. I think what's going on here is the NFL is mindful of appearance and mindful of the fact that they want to seem fair and reasonable right as Judge Mazant is deciding whether or not to rule in favor of Elliott or the NFL. I think timing matters here. If this case wasn't in court, I don't know if the NFL would be so generous. I think, frankly, that the NFL is thinking about impact on the judge, and they're also thinking about other judges could get involved in this litigation. The NFL is trying to move it to New York. Even if it stays in Texas, there could be appellate judges. So the NFL is certainly looking at the optics of what they do in terms of how judges are reacting to it.
Before we get to the New York of it all, so you're saying that if Harold Henderson had made his ruling before that hearing started, the NFL might not have offered Ezekiel Elliott the week 1 helmet?
Possibly, because the argument would be that Elliott wouldn't have been prejudiced in that hearing because he didn't know what Henderson was going to do. If he knew, then there would have been less harm on Elliott going into that hearing.
Well, why wouldn't the New York Giants be hopping mad right now, Michael, and the fact that not only is Ezekiel Elliott going to suit up against them, but the league says to a judge it's too late in the week to just sit here and tell him he can't play week 1 when Odell Beckham Jr. was told on a Wednesday once upon a time he couldn't play in a game.
Yeah, it's hard to reconcile those two things, and I think the Giants would have a valid argument in terms of logic. The NFL would probably respond saying this is a little bit different because it's now in the legal system. And secondarily, it's the league's discretion. The league doesn't really have to be consistent by rule. It would be better if they were, but they're not obligated to.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on radio stations across the country and audience.
If you liked some of that, get some more of that on the Rich Eisen Show app. Follow all the information you see right here on the Rich Eisen Show.